Hello, Freedom Nation. It's Jeff here once again with another episode of the Freedom Nation podcast. And on my show today, I've got Isabelle Fortin. Isabelle is a, uh, a coach and consultant that works with companies helping with leadership. And she'll tell her story about why she got into that side of the world in just a second. You're going to truly enjoy this conversation. She's joining us from Canada, from the Montreal area. So hold on. We'll be right back with us.
All in you. Everything you're looking for, it's all in you. You gotta believe that it's all in you. Everything you're searching for, it's all in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Isabelle, how are you, my friend?
I am great. It's great to be here.
And I
Thank you for
actually
having
said your
me,
name
Jeff. I
correctly.
appreciate you.
He corrected me because I said Isabella, but it's Isabelle. So thank you for joining us on the
Yeah,
show. Really excited to tell your story a little
thank you.
bit. Her and I had a really great conversation ahead of time, and really, I think she's got some interesting and wonderful insights when it comes to the world of leadership and why a lot of our companies don't do it or have it inside of them. So, Isabel, why don't we kick off? Tell us your story. How did you get started? Where or how did you get to where you're at today? First off.
Oh, it's been an interesting
Mhm.
journey, Jeff. Honestly, I joined the Canadian Air Force right
Okay.
out of high school, and honestly, it was
Mhm.
the family business. Both parents
Okay.
had served. That's actually how they met
Mhm.
and got married. And when I joined in 1989, my brother was
Okay.
an Air Force pilot. And honestly, for the first 5 years, I loved
Mhm.
every minute of it. I loved the job, I loved the community, the sense of duty, the sense of service. But after
Mhm.
5 years, I still loved the sense of community and being in service of my country. I just didn't like the actual job, like the day to
Mhm.
day grind. I was getting, less thrilled about. So 10 years in, I said, okay, let's see how the other half of the world, actually more than half the world,
Yeah.
lives. And that's join
If
corporate
if
America.
Canada's
And
like we are,
oh,
it's only about 1% of the people actually serve. So
yeah, that's that's
99%
about
of the
right.
other
I don't
people.
know.
But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
it's about the same number, maybe 98%, but yeah, it's about the same number here. But when I joined corporate America, I was in for a real
Mhm.
clash, my friend, a real clash in leadership. Because the first boss, civilian boss I ever had, I went, what the heck is this? She doesn't know how to lead. And I thought for sure, and I have
Mhm.
apologized to her, by the way. I
Yeah.
thought for sure it was her. She's just bad at this. And then changed jobs like for 5 months later just to
Yeah.
find more of the
Well,
same.
and so let's go
And
back
I was
just
like,
real quick before we get into that. So, I mean, we both served in the military in our countries. What's typically like in the Canadian military when you're moving up to that next level, let's say, what's the training process typical in the Canadian military?
well, I'm pretty convinced it works the same
Yeah.
way it does for you. So there's two things, three things. The first thing is years in. So you have to have certain
Yep.
number of years as serving in the military in order to
Hmm.
achieve certain ranks.
Yep.
So that's the first thing. So you can't cheat that. If the promotion is after 4 years, then unless you get your 4 years date to date,
Hmm.
you're not getting in. Then the second part is your trade training. So let's say you're a clerk working in admin. Um, you need a, I don't know,
Hmm.
qualification level of 5 to before
Yep.
you get to corporal. Well, then unless you have your trade
Hmm.
qualification level 5, you're
Sure.
not going to get the promotion. But the third thing, which is the most important thing in this conversation, is you have to have
Yep.
leadership training, because leadership is a skill and it
Hmm.
can be taught and it should be taught. And in corporate America, it
No.
isn't taught. So if you don't have that junior leadership
Mhm.
course or senior leadership course or executive leadership course, you don't
Yeah.
get the promotion. You don't get
Yeah,
to
no
climb
matter
the
if you're
ladder.
the most liked, you're
Mm,
you've been in the longest,
nope,
all that, if you don't have that leadership quality, and it's the same
don't
thing for
care.
us in the
Nope.
United States, the same thing in our military. You're always taking you have to go through the next level leadership. So you have to complete that next level course before you can even qualify to be considered for that next role at that point. So you've already been trained to
Amen.
do the role, and then you kind of earn your way into that once you've done that piece of it. So
That's
okay,
right.
so I didn't mean to cut you off, but
That's
I
right.
for those that really
That's
don't understand
okay.
how the military works, I think the militaries all over the world kind of do it very similar. It's just train you up for the next role, and then once you've met all the qualifications, then now you're prepared and you're ready to move on to that next role.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that's really important to mention here, Jeff, to your point, is it's not only, okay, so we're going to teach you the principles of
Yeah.
being a great leader, is we're actually going to put you in situations where you
Hmm.
have to lead people. And we're going to evaluate the way that you do it and what was lacking and what could be improved and how could it be improved. And then you have within the same course, and then you have the second exam and the third exam and
Hmm.
the fourth exam. And of course, there are written exams as far
Yep.
as practicality is concerned or structures of leaderships are concerned. But most of the exams that really count are are you actually putting it
Hmm.
in practice? Because it's fun to
Yeah.
have the paper, but if
If
you
you have the
don't do
knowledge, but
anything
not
with the
the expertise
knowledge,
and the actual physical rote work, it's absolute requirement.
it's
And
pretty
I found
useless.
that. I mean, I guess for my world, um, a lot of the companies I've worked with in the financial services industry had really excellent training for, okay, let's get you trained up to be a good salesperson. Let's get you trained up to be that. And I think you had said this, in our brief conversation at the beginning. How many times is it, well, you're the best salesperson, so you're going to become the sales manager? And what what's your thoughts on that?
Oh, Jeff, as I sit here rolling my eyes back, well, it seems to be that most corporation will invest a lot of time and money and resources into training their
Yep.
salespeople, and I understand why, because that's
Sure.
what brings the money inside the company, but they
Hmm.
don't train leaders. And they do the same mistake is they take the best salesperson. If we only want to
Hmm.
take sales department, they take the best sales rep and says, hey, you've been the top notch salesperson in the past 7 years. We're going to put you in charge of the
Yeah.
sales department because obviously you know how to sell.
Hmm.
Yeah, but do you know how to lead? Because selling is a skill, but leadership is
Hmm.
another skill. And if you can't expect someone that's good at a job to be good at leading people that are doing that job, so you need the leadership training. And we were discussing that before we started recording, most corporations in the US and in
Hmm.
Canada and the entire and actually honestly quite
Yep.
in Europe as well is they oversee leadership training
Hmm.
entirely. But you know what? Actually statistically only 6% of leaders get leadership training, and they all work for
Yeah.
mega corporations, Googles and Amazons and Meta and all of these big Spotify and all these big corporations. Well, they understood something that the little or smaller, not
Hmm.
necessarily small, but smaller companies didn't
Well,
get
but I mean,
is
I think
you.
just in my career, I mean, I worked for two of the largest financial services firms in the world. One of which I always said it was kind of East Coast, West Coast. So the East Coast was that kind of
Mm,
very rigid, puritanical, drill, 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 drill. So the one company I worked for, whether it was sales training, whether it was leadership training, it was a process that you went through, and it was that
mm,
continual thing. And it wasn't just, okay, well, we're teaching you how to be a good leader here, and then okay, figure it out. It was, okay, we're going to keep going through this, and we're going to keep iterating on that. The other company didn't really value training at all. And so I kind of always said it was kind of the West Coast free love, just figure it out kind of approach. And I'm shocked that they're as successful as they are, because they really have never valued training. So yeah, it's
mm.
and they're basically equal size of companies. So I think it's a lot of the culture in a lot of companies too.
Yeah, it's very fascinating that they don't get that leadership
Hmm.
is a skill and therefore
Yeah.
it can be learned. And the last McKinsey report stated that leaders have more of an impact on the
Hmm.
employee's health that their medical
Yeah.
doctor have. So, and whenever I talk to a CEO or a new leader that wants to know, what, well, why would I work with you? And I go, okay, so
Yeah.
what's your turnover? Because companies underestimate how much
Sure.
turnover costs. And the cost of hiring someone like me, it doesn't have to be me.
Hmm.
I'm just saying someone that can actually help them do their job and lead their people better and improve, by the way, their engagement, improve their productivity and
Hmm.
their bottom line is a quarter of what it would cost to lose one employee.
Hmm.
And by training
Yeah.
one leader, you keep all of their employees. So imagine the cost is 1.5 to 2 times their
Hmm.
annual salary. Well, if you're a lawyer and one of your lawyer, not necessarily
Hmm.
associate, but is making $250,000
Hmm.
a year, well, how much does it cost
Yeah.
you to lose that person?
One, you lose their
So
ability to
why
generate the
not learn?
revenue from billing, and two, you're going to pay a
Ex-
fortune to find the next one to put in that chair.
That's
And
right.
I think I
That's
heard
right.
the expression one time. One of my old bosses said it. People don't leave companies; they leave bad bosses. It's just if you have a poor leader
And
that's not leading, that's why people are leaving the company.
absolutely. And you know what? This
Mm,
works both ways. So I've heard that many, many times, and I see that on a daily
yeah,
basis with my job. People don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. But you know what, Jeff? We
yeah,
hire for skill, but we
yeah.
fire for attitude. So it
Sure,
works both
absolutely.
ways. So when you equip yourself with the right tools, when you equip yourself with the right procedure in order to A, train your leader, and B, attract the
Mm,
right candidates with, by the way, which with the same process, then you avoid
mm,
all of that BS and extremely
yeah,
costly BS
absolutely.
because you can
Mhm.
train skill.
Yeah, that's
Attitude,
yeah,
a little
you
difficult.
got to bring
Yeah.
something to the table, and attitude's your one thing.
Yes,
So tell me a
that's
little bit
right.
about your process. So somebody, you get introduced, let's say, to somebody inside of a company, and you come in. What's your typical process to assess, where their leaders are at, and then how do you start to work with them?
Okay, so there's four kind of steps to what I do. The first thing is the person who hires me has to
Hmm.
control the purse string because life is too short and I will
No.
not jump through hoops. I did
Hmm.
10 years in the military. I'm not
Yeah.
jumping through hoops no more. So if it's not the CEO, which is fine because I don't particularly enjoy with extremely large corporations, but whomever
Hmm.
hires me has to be
Yep.
able to control the purse string. So that's the first thing. The first thing that I do is I have an anonymous survey by every single one of
Okay.
their employee on how the
Okay.
leader is doing. And I do it anonymously
Hmm.
because I want the truth. Because if out of 10 employees, 9 of them says the same thing, more than likely it's true.
Hmm.
Especially if it's anonymous. If they have to tell it to my face, maybe they're
Sure.
gonna weasel weasel out of it. But if they actually can say it, then it gives me a good idea of how the
Hmm.
boss is perceived. That doesn't mean they're right.
Sure.
It's just the perception. Maybe it's just the persona that that person is projecting, right? The second step is everybody, and it starts
Hmm.
with the leader. Everybody goes through a
Hmm.
psychometric assessment. I use an assessment that's from Switzerland. It's called Nova. And the reason I chose this one, even though I've literally done 100, is some of them are
Hmm.
extremely good, some of them are extremely cheap, and some of them are extremely expensive and
Hmm.
not necessarily better. But the one that I chose is because it gives me an insight into the
Okay.
motivations of people. And why is that important? Well, because how you face things and how you interact with people is kind of could be compared to the kind of car that you drive. So your cognitive preferences, your communication preferences, your behavior preferences. So let's compare that to the kind of car that you drive. The motivation is the kind of
Hmm.
fuel you put in the car. So even though you're flying an F 18, if you put the same gas that you would put in
Hmm.
your lawnmower, maybe you're not
Yeah.
going to be taking off. I'm guessing. So the motivation is
Hmm.
extremely important. And another reason why motivations is extremely important, Jeff, is because you, me, and anybody on this planet cannot
Hmm.
motivate anybody to do anything
Yeah.
anytime. However, what we can do is tap into their motivation, and that's how you
Hmm.
get them to move. So that's extremely important. So I assess everybody on an
Okay.
individual basis. And then when I do the debrief, I debrief the
Hmm.
boss first because I want the boss to know what their employee is
Hmm.
going to go through. The third level is doing a debrief of the team
Okay.
to the boss because the report that they get is about 40 pages
Oof.
per employee. Well, if they have, 10, 12, 15 employees,
Hmm.
that's a lot of reading. So I shrink it down to a two
Nice.
pager saying, this is how you speak to them. This is how you absolutely have to avoid doing. And these are the things that they are
Okay.
naturally good at. So we do that. And that takes several hours. And after that, we come all of us together. And I call that part my prenuptial agreement. And the reason I call it like that is because,
Yes, I
are
am.
you married, Jeff? Okay. So when you're fighting with your wife, is now the right time to come up with the way that you are going to speak in kindness with her? No, it is not. Right? Because emotions run high. And hey, listen, it's the same
Yep.
here. No judgment. It's the same here. Because when emotions are running high, emotions sometimes
Hmm.
run with the best part of us, right? So we have to come up with a plan ahead of time when things are okay, when things are under control, on how are we going to
Hmm.
deal with one another when conflicts arise. Because one thing is for sure, a couple of humans together, eventually somebody's
Hmm.
getting pissed off. It doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter how little, it doesn't matter how big, but somebody's getting mad. So let's try to come up with a strategy that they can all work together. And that part, I actually assist them in doing that because I don't know how they react when they're
Hmm.
mad, but they know. And more than likely, if it's a team that's been working together for quite some time, they've seen one another
Oh,
mad a
yeah.
few times already. So they know how they react when they're mad. So we come up with that strategy. The fourth level is
Mm,
just that's time. That's me showing up every couple of weeks with a one-on-one with the leader or a one-on-one with one of the employees if something's amiss or
okay.
something or they need reframing, and then just going through the daily grind and going through the motion to actually take all of that knowledge and actually apply
Mhm,
it in the daily life. Because when it comes to psychometric assessment, they're like treadmills. The result you get is directly linked to the effort that or the
mhm,
use that you put in. So if you buy a brand spanking new $2,000
mhm.
treadmill and you put it in the garage and you never go in the garage, more than likely the results you're going to get is,
Nothing. Yeah.
well, non-existent,
You gotta use it, yeah.
right? But if you take the treadmill and you say, you know what, it's going to be an eyesore, but I'm going to put it in the middle of my living room in
Mhm,
front of the television because that's where I spend my evenings. And every night, 5 or 6, 7 nights a week, I'm going to walk for an hour while I watch
mhm,
the evening news. More than likely, you're going to see a
mhm,
lot of results. And as far as psychometric assessments are concerned, that is pretty much where
mm.
everybody goes wrong. Is oh, they love it. They're all gun ho and they're excited and they got information out the wazoo. But if the leader doesn't do anything with that information,
Well, and I mean,
then it
so
was
many
useless. It
trainings
was
that I
pointless.
saw in corporate America too. I mean, just in the corporate world, okay, so you go in, you get really super excited, you take all these notes, you have all these tools, and then you go back to your job and you just fall right back into the same habits that you had before if there's no
Right.
reinforcement and
That's right.
nobody kind of keeping your feet to the fire a little bit.
Absolutely. And you know what, Jeff?
Mm,
100%, not 99, 100% of the
mhm,
employees that I meet when I'm hired by a corporation that has ever done in the past any kind of
mhm.
psychometric assessment all tell me a similar version to about this. Well, it's great. I found out I have all these natural abilities and then my boss didn't do anything with them. And why did
Yeah,
we waste our time and
yeah.
why are we doing this again? So when I work with a corporation, I make sure that they're in
Mhm,
for the long haul, and the reason they're hiring me and spending all that money
mhm,
because I'm not cheap, um, is because they're actually going to do something with it. And inside of the leader's debrief, we do a task assessment. So, which are all the tasks that your team needs to be done and who does them? And I just want the bullet points and who does them right now. And we make sure that they're aligned with the natural abilities. Because when you do that, people feel like they're seen, heard, and valued. Why? Because they are
mhm,
seen, heard, and valued. And you know what, Jeff? I'm sure you'll agree with that. 100% of the people want
mhm.
to contribute. They want to know what is that special thing that they bring to the team, that they bring to the table that nobody else does. And what it does is it creates what I call the dinner
Mhm,
table effect. Imagine you spend 40 hours at work and you feel like you have value. How are you showing up at
mhm.
your dinner table? Right? You're happier, you're more present, you're more fun to be around, more pleasant to be around, and that has a ripple effect on your spouse, on your kids and their lives outside of you. So it's greatness
That's
all
awesome.
around.
Love it. Absolutely love it. What
Thank you.
what's new in your world? What are you working on now that you're bringing to market or anything?
Oh, well, actually, that's not going to be interesting for your audience, but I'm developing
Okay.
something in French because English is
Sure.
not my mother tongue, more than likely you've noticed. So I'm bringing everything that I'm doing right now to
Nice.
my community
I love
en
it.
français.
I like it. I like it. Typically what size companies are you getting hired into quite often? What's your sweet spot?
Um, it it varies between about 50 to, I think the largest
Okay.
was 400. And I was a little bit reluctant to work with them in the beginning when I was first approached with them by them, I should say, because like I said earlier, I don't want to jump
Mhm.
through hoops. So I find that very often, and I understand why. It was the same thing in the military, but the larger the company, the more steps
Mhm.
you speak to one, and then they have to convince one, and then they have
Yeah.
to liberate, and then they have to. I'm no, I'm done. I'm
Mm.
too old for that. So, but the reason I accepted is because the CEO contacted
Mm.
me himself and said, "Hey, listen, there's no hoops.
Yeah.
It's me.
I'm gonna make
It's
the
me. The buck
decision. So
stops here.
yeah.
It's mine." Exactly. It's a private company. There are no shareholders. It stops with me. So, and I
Yeah.
went, oh, okay. So, basically, usually it's between 50 to
Okay.
250. I'll go above. It doesn't bother me as long as
Mhm.
there's no
I
hoops.
love it.
Yep.
Love it. Well, let's transition into the fast five questions now. Okay.
Woohoo.
All right. So,
Yep.
question number one, you wake up in the morning, business is gone. You have $500, a laptop computer, place to live, food and clothing. What do you do first?
I connect with as many people as I
Love it.
possibly can.
That simple
It's
and
about
easy.
people.
Find out what they need and take care
Yep.
of it.
That's right. And if it's not me, refer them to
Yep.
somebody that
Yeah,
I can.
that
Yep.
gives you that, you owe me something now kind of thing going on.
Yeah, and even if you
Yeah.
don't expect that, it's
Yeah.
gonna come
Yeah.
back
That's,
anyway.
that's what I
So
call the
yeah,
karma
mhm,
bank. So you just keep making deposits
that's
into it.
right.
What's
Yep, I love
what's
it.
the biggest business mistake that you've ever made?
Uh, Biggest mistake I ever made, not
Okay.
listening.
Interesting.
Yeah, every time that I did a misstep in business is because I didn't pay close enough attention to what the person was
Hmm.
actually saying.
Yeah. Sometimes we
Yep.
hear what we want and not what they
Mm.
said.
And we
Sure.
all have biases, so we have to be wary of that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's a good book that you'd recommend for our audience?
I
Okay.
have two. The first one is
Okay.
Leaders Eat Last
I like
by
that,
Simon Sinek. And the second one is Never Split the Difference
which
by
is an
Chris Voss.
awesome book. Awesome book. Yeah.
It is an awesome book and
Yeah.
it works. It's
The funny thing I
dangerous.
find with Simon is I have to read the books while listening to the audiobook with him because he's not a great
Mm,
writer, but he can get
no.
his point across well in the spoken word. And then you go back and you go,
Yes.
oh, okay, now I can go back and use the book more as a resource book. Cause I found that with,
Yeah.
the, his first book, the why. Yeah, I
Why?
found that I read the
Yeah.
book and I'm like, I just can't. It was so much easier listening to him in his TED talk originally. I got it 100% in
Yeah.
that, and then I read his book and I'm like, okay, I'm so confused now. But I went and listened to it, and for him, I just recommend audiobook and book. But yeah,
See, I did the difference for different reasons though, but I did the
yeah,
opposite with Chris Voss. As I
yep,
listened to the audiobook first, and he's
yeah.
doing the narrative, and I thought, okay, yeah, no, there's too much
I
information
need to go
here.
back. Yeah,
I need the written content. Yeah, I need the written content, and I need to be like it's a
sure. Yep.
reference book. So I need to be able to look back anytime
But
there's something
quite
in
frankly, I mean,
particular,
I've
and
watched a
yeah.
bunch of
So,
interviews with Chris. He kind of scares me in some aspects.
oh, I
He's
love him.
awesome. He's just
I
I would
love
not
him.
have wanted to be on the opposite side of a hostage negotiation with him because he is a scary dude when it comes to it. So
I follow him on
Yeah.
Instagram, and I think that like every day I get a clip
Yeah.
of an interview or something like that, and I save it. Like in my
Yeah.
saved clips from
Mhm.
Instagram, 90% of them
Yeah.
is
That
from
is
Chris
awesome.
Voss. Yeah.
What's a good tool that you use in your business every day that you might recommend for our audience?
Uh, hmm. Well, the tool that I use the most is the psychometric assessment called
Okay.
the Nova Profile, of course. Um, as far as, let's say, the internet, I'm
Okay.
on LinkedIn a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if we want
Yeah. Yeah.
something a little broader for your audience, yeah, I find LinkedIn. I think the average salary on LinkedIn is
Mhm.
$75,000 a year of the people that use it. Um, it's a little harder as far as
Yeah.
social media is concerned because it requires
Mhm.
better quality,
Yeah.
but the outcomes are
Yeah, and
better.
I mean I think that's the thing too, and people use it so poorly. I found that it
Yes.
doesn't take much to really outshine everybody else. If you're at least reasonably
True.
decent at kind of developing relationships, it's one of the greatest places too. And it's, for me, most of the people I deal with, even in the finance world, are business owners or senior people in businesses. So it's the only place I know where I can find them easily, and
Yeah.
identify them easily because
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
self-identify who they are and what they do versus other platforms. You've got to kind of
Exactly.
figure it out at that point.
Yep. And less trolling
Yeah,
on LinkedIn. It's more serious. I call it the social media
very
for
much so.
adults.
Yeah. And I don't want your politics. I don't want all that stuff. Just,
No,
I don't need to see your
don't
cat
care.
videos.
No,
I've got Facebook for that.
no, don't exactly. Don't want to know what you ate last night and how do you
Yep.
prepare it. I don't care.
Last question. What is your definition of freedom?
See, freedom is I I call it I used to call that in the military too. I call it my 5 slash
Okay.
30 rule. So what that means is any
Hmm.
kind of job, any kind of even if you're an entrepreneur, any kind of situation, aggravate me for 5 minutes, I'll give you 30 minutes notice before I leave. So that's what freedom is for me. I refuse, and don't don't take that
Well,
word the wrong way, but I refuse to prostitute
yep.
myself for money. My mind is
Hmm.
not for sale. Um, I bring value. I
Hmm.
charge for it. I charge what I'm worth. And I will not deal with people that are unkind, unpleasant, unwilling to look at themselves. And that includes me. If someone says, "Hey, listen, I think this could be improved,"
Yeah.
I'll actually listen because, of course,
Hmm.
I can be improved. And who better than my clients to
Absolutely.
tell me where?
Love it.
Yeah. So the
530 rule.
530
I
rule,
love
that's the
that. I'm going to
definition.
use that
Yep.
from now on. I'll probably
That's
you
fine.
you
It's
make it
free.
sound better with a French accent. I'm gonna with a Texas accent. I'm gonna probably just hit you fast. Okay, you hack me off or other words for 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
I'm gone. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gone.
Well,
Yeah. Watch me
Isabel,
walk
if
away.
somebody's interested in learning a little bit more about you, reaching out to you, what's the best way to find out more information?
The two best places are on my website, which is
Okay.
againsttheordinary.org, and you can actually book a discovery call. I call them
Yeah.
disco calls, discovery call with me. And the other places on LinkedIn, there's
Mhm.
quite a few of us, Isabelle Fortin, but I'm the only one with
Okay,
purple
we'll go with
hair.
that. Well, and we'll also put the link to your profile inside our show notes
Thank
to make it
you.
easier so you don't have to go search for the lady with the purple hair. And it's not all purple, it's
Yeah.
kind of halfway purple. So it's
No,
that one side. Yeah.
it's just the
Here
bangs.
and there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the bangs.
Well, Isabel, thank you so much. Just an absolute pleasure to have on the
Thank
show. I
you.
really appreciated you. Folks, make sure that you reach out to her. She gives you the opportunity to do a discovery call. Take that opportunity. And once again, as always, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you get all these that come out. So if you have any questions or questions or comments, make sure you put those into the questions and comments section. Look through that summary that we have below each episode, and we will see you back here the very next time.
All in